Hey everybody, here are my thoughts and impressions on the new RunCam 2 with the 170 degree wide angle lens. I did some side-by-side video against the old RunCam with the 120 degree lens and also the GoPro Session 5. Now, to be totally fair, keep in mind that the RunCam 2 costs about $80 and the GoPro Session is about $300, so that's a major factor in terms of price versus quality. Now I have these cameras mounted side by side on this special tripod, so you'll get it, they both have the same view. And I'm going to be looking at things like field of view, light handling, and also color saturation. Those are things that I noticed when I was looking at these two cameras and their footage. Now, if you're just interested in looking at some flying video, I'll have some clips at the very end of this video here. Some nighttime flying and also some daytime flying, so you get an idea of how the new lens handles the two different situations and also what it looks like in terms of the video quality. In these first clips, I'm pointing the RunCams directly into the sun to see how it handles the wide dynamic range, and you can see here that the 170 degree lens seems to be doing okay. The ground isn't completely black, and the sky isn't completely blown out. Here we see the 120 degree lens, and the light handling is quite a bit different. The sky isn't totally blown out, but the ground is quite a bit darker. Now I am running the same firmware on both cameras and the same stock settings, so I did ask the rep at RunCam about this, and they told me that the difference you see here is due to the different lens, and the 170 degree lens apparently lets more light in, and so that's why we're seeing a difference here. Here we're looking at a different angle, and this is with the sun off to the left, and this image looks fairly well balanced to me, perhaps a tad bit underexposed, but it looks like there's pretty good detail in the image. And here's the same scene in the 120 degree lens. Here we can see it looks like it's maybe slightly overexposed. The sky is much more blown out and very bright, and you can also see the side of the house over here on the right. It also looks like it's overexposed as well, although now we can see a little bit more details in the tree that's in front of us in the leaves. So it's a little bit of a toss-up as to which is better. And here's the same scene down the street, a little bit different time of the day. I think this is earlier in the day, where the sun is actually behind me and to my left. And I'm actually comparing the RunCam 2 170 degree lens to the GoPro Session 5 running in Super View mode. And a couple things to note here is the RunCam 2 has a wider field of view horizontally, so it's a little bit more stretched out horizontally, but it's not as wide vertically compared to the GoPro. So if you switch back and forth between this clip here and the next clip with the GoPro, you notice those two things. And additionally, make note of the sky color, of the blue color of the sky. It's a little bit more saturated in the RunCam versus the GoPro. And lastly, make note of the distortion or the fisheye effect on the edges of the images of both of the GoPro and the RunCam 2. They're quite different. And here's one more scene that shows that effect even more. You can see here that the RunCam 2 is much wider in its field of view horizontally, but you get much more of a fisheye effect on the RunCam 2 versus the GoPro. And here's another example of the light handling differences between the GoPro and the RunCam. Here we have the RunCam with the tree there in front of the sun, and there is not much detail in the shadow of the tree, whereas on the GoPro you can see quite a bit more shadow, quite a bit more detail in the shadow. So I just want to quickly cover the form factor of the RunCam 2 in comparison to the GoPro Session, and the various mounting options available to these two cameras. Here I've got on the left the RunCam 2 in a TPU printed mount. It's got an angled mount here, and as you can see, the longer front to back form factor of the RunCam 2 does present some challenges when trying to mount these to certain mini quad frames, and I think that's perhaps why the the Session form factor has become quite popular, and this is another TPU angled mount. And one of the things I wanted to show you guys is on my QAVR clone here, the Session front to back is not as long, and it doesn't impact the battery as much, but more importantly, it doesn't protrude out in the front where it's going to get in the view of the FPV camera. So let me just quickly demonstrate this. Here is what the RunCam 2 looks like, and you see it protrudes out quite a bit more. And it's going to show up on your FPV screen here, so let me turn on the quad. And you'll see that this pointed end of the camera will be in the view of the FPV monitor. Okay. So here is a view of the screen. And let me move this out of the way here. As you can see, right here is the camera mount in the visibility of the FPV screen, or your FPV camera. So if I take this off and I put the Session mount on here, as you can see, here's my finger, you don't see the actual camera in the view of the FPV camera. So let me move this out of the way. As you can see here, there's nothing on the top here. All you get is the view of the camera and nothing else. So for this type of frame, this sort of shorter front to back frame, this camera mount and this form factor would be preferable over the RunCam 2. And this is one of the reasons why I don't use the RunCam 2 on this particular frame, because of the fact that it obstructs the view of the camera, the FPV camera. Now on my Crusader, this isn't an issue. So here's the Diatone Crusader GT2, and I have had the RunCam up here like so, matching the angle of my FPV camera. And because the nature of this frame and the way the camera is located and the way the camera is mounted here, it doesn't show up in the view of the FPV camera at all. But of course, this will also work for a Session as well. I think in fact this is actually designed for a Session without this extra mount here, but the angle is too low that you actually need this additional angle here from another mount to get better visibility. So anyway, I just wanted to show you the two cameras here and the differences and sort of options that they will give you in terms of which one would be better for your particular frame. I think the form factor of the Session is probably going to be more ideal for a lot more frames. So I would suggest to RunCam, if you guys are in the works for the next version, the RunCam 3, I would highly recommend looking into a more squashed front to back format, because I think this type of camera is going to be a little difficult to mount in a lot of frames where they're going to be protruding over those FPV cameras. Just something to keep in mind and for the future.